Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
Doing that whole thing.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychek. And welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychek. Doug, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
Yeah. You know, we are inching our way to the big Halloween. You know that, right?
Yeah, I'm not a Halloween guy. I like the paranormal, but I'm not a Halloween guy.
You don't like Halloween?
I was when I was a kid.
You don't...
I outgrew it. I'm sorry.
Well, you don't be sorry. I mean, if you hate Halloween...
I think a lot of it had to do with, you know, 6 kids, dealing with 6 kids on Halloween.
Yeah.
You know, coming up with costumes for them, and eventually they grow up and you're like, thank God!
Wow. See, I love.
Oh, and then taking them out trick-or-treating in the snow, in the cold, in the wind, and just, you know.
Just horrible. Man, you make it really sound great. Listen to you. You're like, yeah, Halloween, I hate it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because my bratty kids ruined it for me. All 6 of them.
So what do you call it? You know, when someone doesn't like Christmas, you go, it's the bah humbug syndrome. So I have the bah pumpkin syndrome.
So now, being that next week is Halloween and next Wednesday is the Wednesday before Halloween, we should really plan a Halloween-themed show, though.
It's too late. It's already planned.
It's not too late.
It's too late.
See, you're going to throw out there whatever, and people are going to be like, oh, look at that. They didn't even do a Halloween-themed show. What the hell's wrong with these guys?
Look, all you got to do is on, the Wednesday before Halloween is we'll just talk about Halloween stuff. Oh my God, you're killing me.
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me.
We've got some monster dude coming on. I don't even have my calendar. I don't even know.
You don't even have your calendar in front of you. Would you like me to tell you who
it's on Untold Radio website?
Exactly. The 27th, we're going to be having UFO ET experiencer Dave Edmonds on.
Yeah, see?
So he will be talking to us all about all things UFOs and military background. He has a military background, a top secret clearance, by the way. So he can maybe give us the down and dirty on the aliens, which would be great.
Yeah,
and so that is next week.
He's had personal experience.
Yes, and he's a experiencer of ET. And you know, this is like our 52nd show or something like that, or whatever it is. 55th show. 50. Yeah, can you imagine that? We've hung around that long.
Yeah.
Wow.
55.
That's a milestone.
With you.
Right? I was thinking more the other way around. I've had to put up with Doug Hychek for, over a year on the radio.
Yep.
So tonight we got a great show, though, on tap. We have Dr. Russ Jones coming on, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And he's of course, a really well-known Bigfoot researcher, as well as tracking the Stone Man. He's the author of Tracking the Stone Man, Appalachian Bigfoot researcher he is. So we're going to be talking about him about that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So you normally
I'm excited.
Normally you say, "How was your week?" or something.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, here we go. Doug, how was your week?
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, there. Done.
So, what was I gonna? Oh, Monday it started out weird. I got asked to do an episode of a new show, of all places, Snapchat. Isn't that for younger?
That's for that's like the teens, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Well, what do I know? I'm just an old man saying get off my lawn compared to, most.
Anyhow, I got asked Monday morning to do this show called Bee Seekers for Snapchat. It's a series.
Bee Seekers.
Beast? Okay, think about it.
Beast Seekers. I thought you said bee. I thought you said bee as in the bumblebee seekers.
Oh, not
like who the hell cares? They're everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Beast. Okay. So they asked me to do it on Monday, and it went up. No, it was Friday. I'm all mixed up. Anyhow, they asked me to do it. I did it. It's on Snapchat. Mm-hmm. It's a new kind of a vignette series where there are 5-6 minute videos.
Sure.
Cryptids.
Okay.
So, but I heard the title. I'm like, what is so familiar about that title? Beast Seekers. Then I thought, oh, Monster Quest. Beast Seekers.
Right. There you go.
Not the same thing. Yeah.
And basically, yeah, in a nutshell.
But if you want to see it, you can go on Snapchat, look it up. Beast Seekers, not Bee Seekers.
You have to have a Snapchat account.
I didn't even have one.
Oh.
I didn't get one. I now have a Snapchat account.
So you're on Snapchat.
I'm not on it. What am I going to do? What should I do with it?
I don't know. I mean, you could snap and you could chat, I guess.
So snap and then I chat.
I guess. I've never used it.
I should start right now and snap your face.
Snap my face? Gosh, you're in a mood, aren't you?
I'm gonna start a new app called Slapchat.
That's what you need.
Yeah, you just slap them and chat them.
Yes. Well, everyone, you guys can download our shows, by the way, for people that don't know. You can go to the UntouldRadioAM.com. You can get all of the past shows that you might have missed right there. But really, especially, we'd like to see you go to Apple Podcasts because that'll help us a lot too. So, and if you do go to Apple Podcasts, leave a great review for us and maybe give us 5 stars. If, think on it, and you can really leave a nice little, hey, I love the show, or whatever you want to do. Leave us a review and rate and review the thing. And so that would be great. I just want to throw that out there. So we'd love it if you guys would go ahead and download it off of Apple or anywhere you want to, really, because we're available everywhere. But I just want to give that special attention to Apple.
Yeah, I don't think you can leave reviews on a lot of them.
I don't think you can either.
No, Apple.
I don't think you
Apple allows that. Have you noticed, like, if you go to Yahoo, you used to be able to leave comments and stuff?
Yep.
No more. Yeah. It's like nobody wants to hear anybody's opinions anymore. Well, here's the narrative. Take it or leave it. Here's the news.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, remember our doesn't matter headlines. Remember that?
Yeah, no, yeah, right. It didn't matter.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, just read
what did we call that?
I know I'm getting old. Did we talk about something? I want to talk about something, but I can't remember if we talked about it. Did we talk about Blashenko stripes?
No. Last week.
We didn't, did we?
No, because last week we did our headlines that people loved.
Oh, yeah.
Like Man Found in Graveyard Dead.
Yeah, right. Okay. Headline. So there's this thing I've been investigating, and there's a reason, because we're doing we're right now involved in a UV light study.
You are?
Concerning Bigfoot hair. Yes. So I don't want that. We'll just save that for another day, but whatever. But I came across this thing that is so freaky It's called Blashenko stripes, or you can call it Blashenko lines. And it's basically tiger stripes that are on you, me, and every human on the planet.
Wow.
We have
So we're
tiger
striped.
stripes. We're striped. You know how tigers are all kind of random, like camouflage?
Sure.
They look exactly like felid stripes, like you would see on a tiger, or maybe what other animals are striped? Lynx, maybe? No.
Wow.
Lynx
Okay.
are
Very cool.
a little bit. Okay. So they discovered this back in like the 1903 or some damn thing, right?
Mhm.
But I urge everybody to go online and look up Blashenko lines or Blashenko stripes under UV light. It's freaky. And I'm thinking it actually kind of fit into what we're working on, because in nature, nothing happens by accident. There's usually a
True.
reason. You know, if we have stripes, what the hell? There's a reason we have stripes.
Yeah.
We were at one point running around the woods completely naked, at least you were.
Yeah.
You know,
That was just this afternoon.
yeah. Or, God knows, 100,000 years ago, or whatever. Obviously, we were running around naked in the woods, right?
Yeah. Well, we weren't born with clothes, so.
No, and we didn't have Amazon back then.
No, we didn't.
Target or whatever. Okay. So what were they for? And I could only come to the conclusion that there was some critter that was preying on us that could see in the UV spectrum, and it helped protect us. And so the ones that lived, that didn't get eaten by whatever could see with UV light, continued to develop more and more of these stripes to help them be camouflaged. Because I've long suspected that predators, even our modern predators, can see in UV light spectrum, but there's nobody studying it. Literally nobody.
Yeah, really? Oh.
But that would allow you to see urine. Just it would glow.
Yeah.
Like you get a UV flashlight, and I urge everybody to buy one. Joel, you need to buy one.
I have one.
Okay, then go in your bathroom and just go in there and aim it. And you'll be like, oh my God, who peed all over the wall?
Why would I want to do that? You do realize that I have a 5-year-old son.
Yeah, well, that's
going to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's
and
it just splatters. I'm just telling you.
I'm just saying that is a dangerous prospect.
It glows, and show your wife, and she'll freak out.
Worse yet, going to my teenage son's bedroom.
But think how handy that would be if you were hunting, right? Because you'd know exactly where the urine was.
That's what they're used for, Doug.
What?
I mean, for hunting. A lot of hunters use UV light to track blood because blood shows up.
I'm not talking about what we use them for. I'm talking about what animals would use UV vision for.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, of course. That's what, hunters use them. But like caribou can see in UV, wavelength. Mm-hmm. But when I found out about this Blashenko stripes and started really studying them, I'm like, dang, this is weird. Okay, then I found out another weird thing. Because we're doing this. Actually, I'm not. I'm just kind of. I might have been, what do you call it? I was the catalyst to get this going.
You're the idea man?
Well, no, I was going around on podcasts talking about animals seeing in UV light, and somebody heard it. It was a policeman who happened to be a friend of mine on Facebook. And they're like, well, you need to do this with this and try it this way. Because I was having unremarkable results with Bigfoot hair. Anyhow, to make a long story short, then a scientist got involved who I can't name right now. And he's doing something called, God dang it. Okay, here, I'll look it up. It's so cool of a word. It's called, this is real time. It is called, would you hum?
Hey, folks.
Okay, here it is. It's called photobiology. Photobiology, think of it.
Huh.
Isn't that cool? Okay, so flying squirrels glow and whatnot, and then
Yep.
I started doing more research, and I found out all these articles that we actually produce bioluminescence, and we glow in the dark.
Huh. I had no idea human beings did.
Yeah, they glow in the dark.
That is cool.
After my drink of water. Okay. So, and that is called, well, I'll read something here from a journal. Okay. The human body literally glimmers. The intensity of the light emitted by the body, of course, is 1,000 times lower than we can see.
Yeah.
With the naked eyes.
Yeah.
So it's ultra weak, but there's still photon emission.
But it's there.
Yes. And so because it's there, once again, you got to think, why? Something could see us glow. Or somebody can. We don't know who's utilizing that. Or do we each other use it? Like, for instance, like Squid, me and you are communicating by flashing our glow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever walk by somebody and go, something up with that guy?
I have.
Yeah,
First time I met you, in fact.
Yeah, me. Yeah, exactly. So you wonder if it's a new way to communicate. So that's something everybody can look up to. It's really cool. It's just, glowing living creatures that glow, give off light. Actually give off photon emission. And there's some people, of course, it's early yet, but they're saying, well, it's probably linked to changes in energy metabolism. I don't buy any of that crap.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's just cool that we glow at all, and they're able to, see, not so much see it, but recognize that we're doing it.
And it's called,
because it's very low what we're putting out.
Well,
but at least it's measurable, though.
But they're also finding out our eyes see a lot more photons than we recognize. Does that make sense? That are going to our eyes, we're seeing them, but maybe it's just going direct to our brain as some signal, subliminal signal. So anyhow, the name of this is called biophotons. Biophotons, one word.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I had no idea. You're blowing my mind, man.
Yeah. So here's 15 interesting human bioluminescent facts. I'll skim right through them. Do you want me to skim through these or no? If not, I'll skip them. Okay. This stuff's kind of weird. And whoever wrote up these facts was a little tongue-in-cheek. So he writes, we're not kidding. Humans glow just like fireflies. So next time someone says to you, hey, you're glowing, you might be. Okay, so here are the facts. 1, the human body actually emits visible light. The amount of light emitted is extremely small in quantity. 2, the levels of light emitted by the human body fluctuates throughout the day. So that's cool.
Okay.
In fact, I see your glow fading as I'm reading.
It's been a long day, Doug.
Yeah, no,
It's been a long day.
Okay. Okay. The light emitted by the human body has a very low intensity. It has 1,000 times less intensity compared to the light that, you see like in your house. Which ain't much, but it's still there.
It's there. That's what matters. It's there.
So the light, scientists now are saying the light is emitted by every living creature in the world. That's kind of cool, too.
That's very cool.
The human body emits light because of a chemical reaction that takes place inside the body. At least you, not me.
Well, you're glowing, too.
Yeah, it's because
you're absolutely glowing, Doug.
Because I took a shower. Okay. So, I lost my place. Okay, number 7. Human bioluminescence was confirmed by a group of Japanese scientists.
Okay.
And might I add, with too much time on their hands. Right?
Yep, exactly.
They used cameras which had extraordinary sensitivity to photons.
Okay.
Kind of like probably a Sony A7 camera that can see total darkness. Okay. In the experiments conducted by scientists, it was found the human bioluminescence is lowest at exact 10 a.m. and the highest at 4 p.m.
Really? So there is a peak in a valley.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Everybody, apparently. So what's up with that?
Yeah, that is strange.
We could talk about that just all day. Just that one point. Okay, number 9. The experiments conducted with 5 healthy young men who were in their 20s were tested for a period of 3 days. These men were placed bare-chested in complete dark, tight room for 20 minutes. And every 3 hours from morning to 10 a.m. to evening, they checked their glow.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on the results of the experiments, the scientists concluded that bioluminescence in humans, I'm losing my voice, is directly connected to the body clock and metabolic functions.
I suppose while we're burning calories and stuff like that, that's where the glow would probably be the most. And 4 p.m., as we've been up for a long time, we've been moving around a lot, that could be where we're burning the most calories.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I think I'm at 12. The scientists concluded that the body is less exposed to sunlight compared to the face and pigment produced underneath the skin. Oh, man, this is covered up by some pop-up. Hold on here. Oh, I hate those things. Okay, let me read that again. Scientists concluded that it's written really bad. That body is less exposed to sunlight compared to the face, and the pigment melanin is produced underneath the skin is stimulated by sunlight. This melanin contains fluorescent components. So when you get a tan, you glow more.
Yeah.
And isn't that weird that people do say that after you've been out in the sun? Oh, you're just glowing. It's just weird. It's coincidence, but it's kind of weird. So the more melanin means more bioluminescence. Scientists say that since bioluminescence is directly connected to the metabolism, which I don't believe, the faint light emitted from the body can actually be used for spotting medical conditions.
Interesting.
So it could have some new, breakthroughs in the future.
A medical use.
Yes. Well, of course. Probably spotting skin cancer, I would imagine.
Yep.
The rest is kind of boring. It says, I'm reading these, and I'm like, it doesn't even make sense. Human bioluminescence has no evolutionary role to play, unlike the case of deep fish, glowworms, fireflies, etc. And I'm like, well, how do they know that? They don't know anything.
Yeah.
So, whatever. So that's kind of that. That's enough said.
That's interesting.
The other thing that happened this week is today I lost 1 hour of my life. Confirmed scientifically. Today I lost 1 hour of my life. Do you know how? You want to know how?
Yeah, I do want to know how.
Or you're in suspense.
I am.
It's confirmed by science.
I am just wondering.
Without a doubt, it's been confirmed. I lost 1 hour. In fact, I gave it up willingly today. I ate 2 hot dogs.
Oh, yes, that whole thing where things that take time off your life.
Half an hour.
Yeah, but how many hot dogs have you eaten?
Oh, my God. Year's worth, at least.
You love hot dogs.
I've eaten a year's worth, if you know what I mean.
You like hot dogs.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Better than a nice sweet bun, a good a Worcester hot dog with sweet onions and mustard. Oh my God!
Well, maybe some of your favorite. What's that called? Relish.
Yeah. Yeah, relish too, pickle relish.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So I actually knew that fact going in today, and I went, perfect. Gone.
Let me eat a hot dog. What are those guys that have a couple? What about the Joey Chestnut, the world's fastest hot dog eater?
Yeah, the guy, poor guy.
Bet you that man's a dead man walking.
He's probably given up 1.5 years of his life, like me. I've given up 1 year.
Yeah. Well, that's the price you pay if you want to eat the dog.
Did I ever tell you when I invited my 2 boys over for a barbecue, right? Just kind of spur of the moment. I said, hey, bring your own meat. They showed up, I swear to God, they showed up with 2 packs, 29 cents a pack, gas station hot dogs.
Well, it was spur of the moment, so,
Oh, my God. And they ate them.
Sure. The fun dogs.
Joel, 29 cents a pack? Those things were at least, you eat one of them, that's an hour of your life.
Oh, that's, yeah.
For each
if not
dog,
more.
double.
That's a day.
Double death dog, I called them.
That's a day of their life.
Double death dog. Okay. So, anyhow, but I did that willing today, and I was going to make eggs. You know how I make eggs so good?
Yeah, I know.
You never explode
anything. Yep.
You go make eggs, and there were no eggs in the fridge.
But if you eat a PB&J, you gain time.
Then I dug in the drawer, like you're going to do.
Yeah.
I was looking for bacon or something, and I saw, cheddar Wurst hot dogs. And those dudes were in the pan with butter so quick.
Do you like them with butter, do you?
No,
so wait a minute. You cook yours with butter? You don't boil yours then?
No, are you kidding?
In water. You cook yours in a pan with butter.
So
that's even more time off your life.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Another butter.
Another 5 minutes. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I get them all black. So that's another probably 10 minutes.
So you like your hot dogs burnt, is what you're saying.
Very carcinogenic, yeah.
Yeah.
Not burnt, but that nice brown.
I know what you mean.
It's kind of more of blackish color because the butter burns a little bit,
Yep. How about on the barbecue? Do you like them like burned to a crisp?
Hot dogs? Gotta have them split and open.
Mm-hmm.
You should have seen those 29-cent hot dogs. They had like paper casing.
Paper casing.
I think it was. It was made out of paper. They turned jet black. Oh my God, my kids.
Oh boy. And your boys ate those.
Oh, yeah. They ate. Oh, my God. Did they eat them? They ate tons of them.
Oh, my gosh. So they were all in hog heaven.
Oh, I was eating steak, laughing.
Well, they're young, though. How old are your boys?
I don't know.
You don't even know?
30s.
How old is Blaine?
Getting old, huh?
Blaine can't be in his 30s.
But when your kids grow up, they're still just your kids.
Well, that is true. My kids, however, are still young by anyone's measure. One's only 5 and one's only 7.
Yeah, that is young.
Those are young kids.
Hey, maybe I'll just keep having more. I'll beat you.
That's what the world needs.
I'll beat you. More high checks.
I'm sure that's what. I'm sure a vet is really interested in doing that.
Okay, so let's see here. We've gone through some weird. Okay, so there was a guy, and I really didn't know it could occur in fish other than goldfish. But have you ever heard do you know what piebald means? Piebald.
No.
Okay. So piebald is. I first learned this about deer. It's when you basically get the coloration of a cow. You get black, brown, white.
Sure.
It's like, okay, so there's melanistic, which are black. We've probably all seen white squirrels, albino, and black squirrels are melanistic.
Sure.
And then there's one more category. It's more rare.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
But maybe not. It's called piebald. And it really affects, I think, every animal. I think even bear have been born piebald.
Interesting.
So a friend of mine sent me a picture and he goes, "What's up with this? Like, what is this?" And it kind of looked like a giraffe. And it was up northern Minnesota. And I said, "Oh, it's a piebald deer." It's got black dots all over it, white. It's got a shorter face because it does affect some of the musculature of an animal.
Yeah.
It had a short face, had weird looking ears, but I knew it was a piebald deer.
Interesting. Hey, I hate to cut this short, but we got to get out of here.
Oh, my God.
We got to get our guest coming on. We got to get talking about Bigfoot, all that kind of good stuff. The book he's written. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on 2 things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Untold Radio. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Highcheck. Doug, I see you made it across the other side. We are here to cross the break. I mean, you didn't hang up is what I'm saying. I'm surprised.
That was a long break.
That was a long break. That's a 2.5-minute break.
Wow.
Is what that is. But it's the only break we have during the show.
But our open went by like...
Right now. Right, it goes quick.
It's because I was talking too much.
Well, that's right. You're just ba chatty Cathy.
Yeah.
You know. But anyhow, we got a great guest tonight. We have Dr. Russ Jones. He wrote a cool book called Tracking the Stone Man a few years ago, which was huge, and it won a lot of awards. In fact, it won the Best Regional Book in the Country award. That's saying something. Yeah. He is presently working on, getting ready to finish up his second book, his upcoming book. The second one is Appalachian. I always struggle with that word.
Right? Yeah,
that is one of the words that's the bane of my existence.
Yeah, me too.
Bigfoot. He has spoken all over and been on television many times, including guest appearances on Finding Bigfoot. That one word screwed me up for the rest of the intro. I was doing so well. No, but in all seriousness, we have Dr. Russ Jones. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jones.
Hey, thanks, guys. Glad to be here. I'm a big fan.
Thank you for
I
coming
listen to
on.
all your shows.
Say, Russ, so you're also a chiropractor.
That's right. Yeah.
So give us a little lowdown on that real quick, because it's a form of medicine that some people use, some people don't. It's weird. And some people, like, you have to understand, I pay chiropractic bills for my 2 daughters that love it. They go for preventative medicine.
Yes, that's right.
They claim it's cleared up their skin and everything.
Yeah. Ironically, this month is my 30th year in practice.
Wow.
And I have seen now over 240,000 patient visits.
Jeez, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that many people you helped.
That's been here. There's 2 younger ones that work with me, and the office has been open 50 years. And I've been a lot of times chiros have been going since they were kids and they were young themselves, and it's kind of part of their life. But it's interesting. 75% of all chiros were either college or pro athletes. Mm-hmm. So we all kind of believe the same things. We all eat right. We all exercise. We all take a lot of vitamins. We're naturally inclined. And but it's interesting, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but 1918 Spanish American flu killed 10% of the world's population.
Yeah.
The people that saw chiropractors, very few died, and very few got very sick. So the federal government licensed chiropractors to treat viruses. And that was the first licensing process to treat viruses. But as time has went on, and now we are, insurance is everywhere. And so insurance companies want us all to be neck pain, back pain, headache doctors. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the people forget that, chiros initially got started treating viruses and other types of conditions.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about that? I mean, resetting the back and resetting a person's structure. What do you think that is that's battling those viruses? Is it helping our immune system? Is that what it's
That's
doing?
Exactly right. Your nervous system controls your immune system. So there's all these studies that show that when a chiropractor adjusts someone, it raises your white blood cell count. They take blood from someone, they do an adjustment on them, take the blood afterwards, the white blood cell count is up. So there's a lot of people that show things like that happening. All the anti-aging people see chiropractors consistently just because of mitochondrial end caps. The mitochondria determine how long we're going to live. And when a chiropractor does an adjustment, they'll glow on MRI. So there's a lot of people that are really interested. I'd say probably maybe 10% of my practice is just people that are interested in anti-aging stuff. They want consult about their workouts, what vitamins they're taking, how they're eating. And, but I live in West Virginia, and we have people like to eat here. So a lot of my patients, want to come in and get support and, just let me try to encourage them a little bit.
Sure.
So there's one question I've been dying to ask a chiropractor, and I never have. Okay. Do you go to a chiropractor?
Yeah, I have 2 younger ones that work for me. I've seen chiros since I was probably a young kid, 8 or 9. And probably about a quarter of the patients I've treated since they were kids.
Wow.
And so I do it because of the whole anti-aging thing. I mean, I work out a lot occasionally, my back hurts or something, or whatever happens to be, or I'm bent over seeing too many people. But in large, it's just because I want my nervous system functioning just right, especially with the whole COVID situation. I mean, I think it seems crazy that we wouldn't use every avenue that we have, to protect ourselves. I mean, whether or not people think different things work. I mean, as long as something doesn't hurt you and it's okay, then shoot, I'd try it.
Why not? That's the thing.
Have you prevented people from getting back surgery by?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's common that you would see people that, they have a positive MRI and they have a disc involvement. It's not like that you can make a herniated disc could go away, but many times, you can help the person strengthen the muscles. And sometimes, the nervous system's so stimulated that, people, it's like a positive feedback cycle that it just keeps sending a pain signal. And so a lot of times when a chiro does manipulation, there's where those joints meet, it's called a mechanoreceptor. And, just by stimulating those joints, it's kind of like pushing a clear on the calculator. It resets the brain, and then you can help the healing process. But most of the chiros are, I have 4 massage therapists that work for me. We're doing all the physical therapy modalities, the ultrasounds and the stem and the tractions and all that kind of stuff. And I do acupuncture. I've done it 26 years, and so that's kind of a mix and mash of just whatever I need for that individual patient. But it's, it's interesting. I thought that I would be at 50. I'm 56 now. I thought at 50 I would be in the national parks working as a naturalist for them, and that was my plan. But, healthcare changed. 1993 was the first managed care. And actually, I think Minnesota is always one of the first states that are a little bit of a forerunner of most of the things we have in healthcare in the country. California and Minnesota. And
that's because we have the Mayo here. I mean, we're lucky we have the Mayo Clinic here, and they kind of spearhead everything as it's coming out in their research and development. And so we're lucky enough here in Minnesota to have access to a lot of the cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that makes a lot of sense. And but healthcare changed, and we're trying to provide more people healthcare. The 2 most common types of doctors are chiropractors and family doctors. And chiropractors by far see more patients than any other type of doctor and are really popular. But when you have those 2 groups that are seeing most of the patients, you can't reimburse at a really high rate if you're trying to see more patients. So reimbursements have lagged in the last decade or so for those 2 groups.
Yeah. Wow. Man, I mean, I never put the 2 and 2 together, the chiropractor with fighting viruses and how it helps your immune system, but it stands to reason. When your body feels good and it's working the way it should, it's performing at the top of its game, it has viruses have a very hard time taking a foothold because your body's doing what it needs to do.
And somebody to remind you that when you eat sugar, that it drives down your white blood cell count, your immune system for 3 hours after you have the sugar. So, you're telling all those patients, listen, you need to be doing these vitamins. These are the ones that protect your immune system. These are the ones for COVID. And then when you're out and about, you need to be careful about eating too much sugar because, that can affect your immune system too. And so a lot of times people just forget that. But if they're doing a reset on their health and they're like, I picked up 15 pounds during COVID, where do I go? And then they just need somebody to step in and say, okay, listen, that's what I want you to do. You're going to give me 10,000 steps a day. You're going to cut down on your sugar, no pop. Let's get rid of that stuff and the bread and the sweets. And then, see me in a month and we'll see where we're at. Yeah. And, so a lot of your patients, that's just a reset type of thing. And I think that if you look historically, what everybody's always said, that if you put 10 chiropractors and 10 medical doctors in a room, you'd walk in a room and instantly point at the chiropractors and say, those are the chiropractors, because the chiropractors would be fit and would look healthy. And, and I'm not saying, certainly a lot of my friends are medical doctors and they're fit and they're healthy too, but as a general group, it just is a lifestyle thing that chiropractors embrace.
Cool.
Man.
Okay. Well, we'll have to do a show just on chiropractic information.
I mean, it would certainly be popular for a lot of reasons. Everybody sees chiros, and there's just a lot of controversy that's went by it over the years. I mean, I don't think that a lot of people knew that in 1991 that the American Medical Association lost a Supreme Court case to the American Chiropractic Association, that they'd actually tried to do away with a profession for financial reasons. They had to pay, they had to apologize, they had to send it out in their AMA journal that it wasn't appropriate what they had been doing, and they could have been disbanded, but the Supreme Court found, the federal district court at that time found that, the AMA did more good overall than this one bad thing they did. But when you talk to family doctors you're friends with, they don't know. No, everybody's just seeing their patients. And that's what I tell my young doctors. I mean, don't hack on family doctors or specialists or PTs. Everybody's doing their thing and everybody's doing the best they can. And that's what you should do for your patients. Be kind, be honest with your patients, and just try to do the best that you can for them.
Yeah.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
Very true.
Cool.
Very, very true. And that's a very interesting topic, like you said, Doug, all on its own. That's something else.
All right, Russ, let's switch gears.
Yeah, okay. Do your patients know that you're also Dr. Bigfoot? I mean, that you're a Bigfoot researcher?
Yeah, I think a lot of times if you Google doctor and Bigfoot, I come up, and, I've been around for a long time doing this stuff. And I know that one time on one of the TV shows, I think it was one of the Finding Bigfoot's, Bobo would ask me, he said, I got to know, man, what do your patients say? And I told him, Bubs, I've been around for so long and with patients that, they all know me, that I'm reasonable, and they're intrigued by it. And in general, in the public, I have found that people are very interested in Bigfoot, and it's rare. If you can imagine, I know in the book I was talking about, it's around 30% of the people believe in Bigfoot nationally, but they're including Chicago and LA and New York and all these places. But you get in Appalachia, the Pacific Northwest, it can be around 75% of the people that believe in Bigfoot. So it's rare in West Virginia, where I live, or Southeast Ohio, where I grew up, for people that are in the woods all the time not to have a story that something happened. I can't tell you today, I heard probably 3 or 4 different patients said, let me tell you a story. And it may not be Bigfoot related, but, something happened in the woods and they heard this noise and they didn't know what it was, or whatever it happened to be. But, that's one of the things I've always enjoyed about Appalachia is that, we, in our fairs and our festivals, we have storytelling competitions. So it's part of our culture here. And so everybody really embraces the Bigfoot thing too. They want to hear everybody's stories.
Yeah.
So that part of it's really been cool.
Okay. So you're a highly educated man. You've obviously been involved in Bigfoot research, but I want to hear your best elevator pitch to people who just haven't even thought about it.
So, when I did Tracking the Stone Man, which was several years ago now, when we were talking about in the book, say, for instance, what I thought Bigfoot may be or whatever, it was maybe several paragraphs for each thing when I could have written chapters on each thing. But my argument and my thought was that if someone just laid out the basic evidence and the reason for it and the rationale behind it, at the end of the book, someone may say, I mean, maybe, it seems reasonable to check out. And from what I gathered, that's the way most people were at the end of the book, is that they felt like that it was a reasonable thing to check out. I mean, the thing that's most interesting for me, scientifically, of course, I'm compelled by the footprints and the digital things we're all doing with this stuff now. And I think there's some good films on the internet and stuff, but now, how are we supposed to, I know, Doug, with your background, you probably point them out in an instant and say, well, that's real or that's fake or whatever. But for the public, we don't really believe hardly anything anymore because, of everything can be faked so much. I think that I like the historical counts going back centuries that appeals to me. I think that people discount witnesses too much. And what I mean by that is if you talk to a police officer or something or a lawyer, they'll tell you that witness testimony is notoriously incorrect. But it may be incorrect about height, which we know it is, or even color. Yeah. But for instance, it's not incorrect on whether or not they saw a human doing it. So I think that it's reasonable. The people might not say that they saw a Bigfoot and it was 7 foot high. I would really start to question instantly whether or not it was actually that tall or not tall, unless there was some kind of thing that, is solid by sign or whatever they're going to measure it. But I think that people are perfectly capable of knowing whether they not saw something realistic or not.
Yeah.
So, I make that argument in the new book, The Appalachian Bigfoot, when I go through the evidence of different things and things that, we should find compelling, is that I think that we should look at the records historically. And that's why I always like to look at the older reports. Like, it's so funny, like they would drag him in front of a magistrate and make him testify or whatever. And now we'd be like, oh, whatever, the person's lying. We don't believe it. And, but in those days, just a couple decades ago, people really took their testimony seriously. And, and then I think the repetitiousness that you see certain things, for instance, commonly you'll hear the hair between the wrist and the forearm is longer. Commonly you'll hear about wrinkles around the eyebrows. Some of the other great apes have those type of features, but people don't know anything about Bigfoot. That's the thing about Bigfoot. The witnesses are geographic. They're not a type. They're geographic. And
makes sense.
I was trying to
it's definitely a geographic problem, not a demographic problem.
That's right.
Because, these things are only seen near water constantly. You can take 90% of the sightings and they happen within 500 yards of water. Mm-hmm. That's just beyond coincidence.
Yeah.
You'd brought that up before, Doug, many times, and it makes sense. Well, every other animal.
Well, it's like woods. We don't, we don't see them in the inner city. We see them in the woods. Mm-hmm. It's usually woods, water, and hills. You have to have those three ingredients. Yep. At least two of them. And where Russ is, you've got all three.
Yeah, I think that, the Appalachians are the Pacific Northwest of the East Coast. Very similar terrain, temperate rainforest, and much of it in the southern Appalachians. It's just a great place with a large historical history of Bigfoot. And then, of course, the most common area for reports, you got Washington, Oregon, and California in a line, which makes sense because, you're assuming that whatever it was or whatever came over from the Bering Land Bridge 10 to 20,000 years ago. So that would make sense that, those would have more. And then as Bigfoot would have spread or whatever Bigfoot happens to be spread across the U.S. in territory and game and so forth and so on. But it's interesting that Ohio, which has about, the southeast portion inside Appalachia, is the fourth most common place for Bigfoot sightings. But it gets, a little different when you start looking at, for instance, some of the states like in West Virginia, there's only a couple people doing reports. You only have a whole population of 1.4 million in the state. there's 7 million acres of woodlands. There's places that you can go literally, 10 to 20 miles in between gravel roads of harsh, steep terrain through much of Appalachia. So it's a perfect, kind of a atmosphere for them to be in.
Oh, exactly. I mean, there's places in this country man hasn't stepped foot in years, many, many years, or has never stepped foot in yet.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting too, like Ohio has about double the forest land that it did in the 1940s, and we always perceive that everything's getting developed and everything's spreading.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it may be around larger cities, but in much of the United States, we have more forest land than we did, say 75 or 80 years ago. And much of the terrain altering that we do, the timbering and so forth, is good for animals. And of course, usually that means it's good for Bigfoot too, just because of, that particular aspect where it increases deer. Yesterday, I was in Ohio retrieving one of my cameras, and, I have 36 cameras out now. And I was in the most remote section of Ohio, and I'd walked in a couple of miles, and, I was looking at all. They really manage their forest well. And some of, they'll have a 500 or 1,000 acre clear cut or whatever. And I was looking how thick some of this area that was I was in. And it was interesting, like in West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe northern Georgia, you have enough room that there'd be area for a Bigfoot to be able to get away from people or not have to encounter them that often. Ohio, not so much. And I think that they're really using those areas where we just can't access because of how thick they are.
Sure.
And hunters don't want to go downhill. I was looking at this steep hill yesterday. I was like, I want to drag a deer out of here. And I think that's what most people are.
Yeah.
That camera I pulled out of there yesterday, I had out 19 months. I didn't have any people on it. And that's the way commonly in most of Appalachia, a lot of times I won't have people on the camera as long as it's out. In Ohio, commonly somebody will show up at some point.
Yeah. What's the evidence that makes you believe in Bigfoot? I mean, what got you going? I mean, and what evidence was it that made you want to pursue this as a
like so many people had experiences. I grew up in Southeast Ohio. My family, rabbit dogs, coon dogs, we all trapped. We hunted everything. My grandfather was really well known in the area. People would drive by on deer season to see how many bucks that we had hanging in front of the house. My whole family was known for that type of thing. Yeah. And I was a teenager out with this guy that was going to be in the Army. And New Year's Eve had snowed about 4 inches. New Year's Day was a beautiful sunny day. It was cold, in the 20s, maybe teens. And I went out and I came along this hillside and I was running my rabbit dogs, and there's a cave up on this hillside, and you really would be close to even know it was there. But, I knew it was there just because I'd spent so much time in that area. Mm-hmm. And I came upon what I thought were barefoot human footprints. I thought that, I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. I just thought that these were some type of human. Somebody had some druggie, this is in the 70s, had wandered out into the forest and, had maybe been on drugs and did this. So I went up to that cave. I looked inside to see if there had been a fire or whatever it happened to be, but there was nothing up there. And, we talked about it for a long time, but then we just kind of went on hunting. And then later that year, there was a beaver dam that, was a mile or two back from any road, and there was no paths to it. My family knew about it from hunting. We'd ran into it. Nobody else would ever be back there, but I ran turtle hooks for snapping turtles back there, and we fished and stuff back there. And my uncle and I were standing on the dam, maybe 20 yards apart, fishing, just not talking, just quiet. And I heard across the dam from me, it was brushy, and it was maybe 40 yards away, and I heard something coming down there, walking, and I glanced over. I saw my uncle looking too, and I just thought that it was probably a deer or something. But then it started shaking the trees and making like kind of a sound. And, I said, what do you think that is? And he's like, just look for a tree you can get to. It's got to come across water. We didn't know what it was. It went on about a minute and then it just quit. And I always tell everybody, you know what we did then? We kept fishing. Because we were raised in the woods, and we just were raised that nothing in the woods wasn't more afraid of you. And so, we didn't know what it was, but we weren't, we just weren't that concerned with it. Then that summer I saw Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of, I saw the Bigfoot episode, and it made me curious. And after that time, I had found a footprint with my father, and then I found another really good footprint when I was squirrel hunting. And so my whole life, I was very, very interested in it enough that I was following what was going on. And then you get out of school, I was in undergrad 4 years, and I was in chiro school 5 years. And then you start practice, and you're working all the time and building your practice. And I started taking classes to become a Master Naturalist, a certified one. And Jeff Meldrum was speaking at the Ohio Bigfoot conference. And back then it was not very large, just, a few hundred people. Yeah. I knew nobody, of course. I wasn't in Bigfoot world at all. I went up there and I listened to Jeff speak, and I talked to him afterwards. And then I saw, because if you Google Bigfoot, a lot of times the BFRO comes up. And I saw that they were having one of their, 10 or 12 places a year. They do an expedition or whatever. And one was in Ohio. And I thought, I'm just going to sign up. And if they're weird, I'm leaving. But, I'll just go and just kind of see what it's like. And back then, Matt Moneymaker used to go to all of them. And Matt and I just hit it off. And so then I started doing the reports for the group in Ohio and West Virginia. And that was a long time ago. And, now some of the conferences that you went to before that you didn't know anybody, now you're speaking at some of them.
Sure. And yeah, I get it. I totally understand what you mean too, because once you start going and you start meeting like-minded people, and they have theories that you never thought about too, it spurs that interest. It keeps it going and going. And then meeting great people like Jeff Meldrum and stuff like that. Yeah, I get it, because the first time we put one of these on here in Minnesota, Doug was one of the speakers, or no, you're the MC, in fact, Doug. And it was just amazing how many people came out to tell their stories about what they'd seen. And you got to sit back and say to yourself, some of these people are obviously telling a yarn, but not all of them. Yeah, there's people here that we listened to that just had these, why would you make this up kind of story.
Yeah. When you're a woodsman and an outdoorsman, and you have something, when you spend all that time and all your life in the woods, and you have something that happened that you can't explain it.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
Sits with you, and you feel, I just have always felt that need to know. I own a property in a farm in Ohio that I'm at all the time. My farm, I bought strictly based on a history of Bigfoot sightings that were at the park that I adjoin. Where I practiced in West Virginia strictly because I was able to have large amounts of land close to my practice and was able to be in the woods. And now that I'm older, I'm able to be, I was out yesterday, I'll be out tomorrow, I'll be out some this weekend. And, I have great tracts of land that are 10 minutes from my house in West Virginia, where there's, a history of sightings. And, and I've changed a lot over the years too. I mean, I spread myself too thin. I was going all over West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and I just wasn't being that effective at it. I had these cameras out everywhere. And now what I've done is I've concentrated it more in like 3 or 4 areas. So I may have, one park has 12 cameras in it. So you get to know the wildlife better in that area better. And now I'm doing a much better job of getting an understanding of those lands instead of just hopscopping around and quitting the ambulance chasing of reports. You know what I mean? Like I get reports almost every day, and it's tempting for me to leave and go run and see whatever. But, I've done that dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of times. And you get there and the Bigfoot's not there. I mean, it's long since moved on. And so, I think that, when I talk to audiences or to younger people, that's one of the suggestions that I have is, choose an area that's close to you. Don't choose an area that you can get to like once or twice or 3 or 4 times a year. If you can't be a regular in that area and learn the ground, then it's not worth going, and like I just started a new area here in West Virginia. And of course, in West Virginia, everything is woods, but this one particular area is about 13,000 acres. And of course, it's surrounded by hundreds of thousands of acres. And so that particular part I'll start. Now, if there's trails or timber roads, I'll walk all of them. I'll walk every creek. I'll walk every ridge until I've encompassed that whole piece of land. And 99% of the time, you don't see anything, you don't hear anything. You're just hiking in the woods. But it's good for your health, right? I mean, just to be out there,
right?
Else.
Yeah, it gets you out and about.
So Russ, you've got 36 cameras on, which is a huge amount.
Yeah.
Why do you've got to be getting a little bit frustrated though too?
So 32 of them are Reconics, which are expensive, as you know. I mean, the HC 500s and 600s, and you were paying, $500 a camera. Then you put a cable lock on them, which is $20. Now they've changed to something called the Hyperfire 2, and it's $400. It's cheaper, but one of the hassles is they put the cable lock in front of it, whereas before I was able not to have to carry all my keys with me, but now you had to actually take the camera off the tree and to get the SD card out. And it's a hassle to do that. I've changed to try adding a couple different types of cameras just because in my gut, I knew that I had to have been close to them a number of times by now and should have had a good picture. You get some, like I just got one, I was sharing it with Matt Pruitt, if you guys know Matt, just the other day, because, I came out of the woods. Here's this, it was yesterday. It was 19 months that camera was out there. One day I get something where it's so close to the camera, it's whiting it out, and you can see like eyes, lips, and a nose. And after that picture, I get no pictures, no animals, nothing for 3 months. So how I've started to look at it now is I certainly want a picture, and I'm trying to be creative. That's why, Doug, I always love hearing you talk about the cameras and the different things you're doing, because I'm striving to do something different. But I'm starting to look at it like, I believe from the studies that are out there, the Chinese studying our game cameras for their use in their own indigenous forests that they have out there, that our game cameras produce a noise. The Reconics ones are better, but most of them are around 30 decibels, so little kids can hear them. I'm sure the animals hear them. Even the Reconics ones that are blackouts and everything else, the animals are still looking at my camera. So I think that they're hearing them. So what I've started to pay attention to in particular is when you're enough cameras in a certain area, I see the same 10 or 20 deers every day or whatever it happens to be. And I start charting and noticing when I start seeing a change in the game activity. Just like yesterday, it's common for me to see, and what I have discovered over the years, or noticed as would be a better word, is that I'll see a 7 to 10 day section where there's little game activity at all in a certain area. it makes me suspicious that something's in that area disturbing the game. And I put it on a calendar, and when time comes up, I'll try to be in that area spending time. And so that's the hypothesis that I'm using right now, is that I'm trying to use it to figure the movement without necessarily getting a picture, using cameras to shape their movement, maybe to block certain areas off, so that I have to have them moving in a different area or a more certain area. So I feel like I'm close. That's why I always tell everybody that, you feel like you're coming up to close, and you have, I probably have 3 or 4 shots that, you could make out something, but it's just not that clear. And then there's tons of shots where you're just getting an edge of hair, but you can't say for certain that, it's not, maybe here we have flying squirrels that are active at night. So, they don't really have large tails and stuff. So it's probably not that, but I guess it's that possibility. You certainly can't say for certain. And the reality is that, you're just not going to share something unless it's good enough, the type of evidence you think that is compelling for people.
Sure. Makes sense. Right, Doug?
Yeah. I mean, do you feel that, because every other animal is noticing the cameras, that the Bigfoots are purposely avoiding them? I mean,
there's a study from the University of Georgia that they noticed that it's hard to get alpha male coyotes on game cameras.
Yeah, I read that.
I do occasionally, but certainly if they're noticing them, I'm sure that, a higher primate would be noticing them too. I know that some people believe that they see the infrared, but I think a lot of times people don't understand that, our game cameras are different now, and they don't have like some beam that's sticking out there. They are sitting there passively with a sensor. It's called a PIR sensor. And, it's just measuring heat radiation. And whenever something comes, it changes that. The camera fires, but it doesn't have something sticking out there for an animal to see that infrared. Now, if you're in an area where there's too many deer or something, well, then, of course, something's probably going to see every time a deer goes by, they're going to notice, the flash or whatever. Because even with the blackout cameras, it's really just a filter, and you still see the glow of the eyes on the animals many times if they're looking at the camera. But it's interesting, Doug. I know that you had talked about approaching some of the manufacturers, and it was interesting. Prior to that, Buckeye cameras, which is a pretty popular camera around the country, and they were the first ones that were, having where it would relay the pictures directly to you. And they were very expensive setups, like $1,500 at first. And they were literally just a couple miles from my farm. And I stopped and talked to them. But it was interesting, they're just making their money for a deer, and they just really weren't interested in talking about, ways that, something be creative, some type of solution to the problem.
Right.
And I called Reconics, and it was kind of the same. They were impressed that someone had 30 something of their cameras, but they're making their money on people getting shots of deer staying in a deer feeder or something. And I guess they're happy with, what's going on. I will say with Reconics that camera was out yesterday, 19 months, still had 47% battery life, which I thought was pretty remarkable. So, it's common for to get almost 2 years out of the cameras. But if you're putting it in a clear cut where you're having dozens of deer walk past a day, you're probably not going to, even with Reconics using lithium batteries, you're probably going to be lucky to get 6 months out of it.
Yeah. Well, we went ahead and we just finally got one camera manufacturer to say, hey, we're interested in helping you. But it took them forever to get back to us. I mean, it took, 2 months, 3 months for them to even answer the email. Wow. It's like, what kind of hoops did they have to jump through, before they would even respond? And now it's from the correspondence we last got, it sounds like they're all open arms.
I'm sure that your voice is much more persuasive and louder than mine, so I can only imagine if it took you that long to get a response. Maybe it'll lead to to something that'll give us some, something different, some approach. I think that once we figure out how to go about it and do it, I suspect that it will be easily reproducible. It's interesting. Cliff Barrickman and I were talking one time, and I forget there's a female primatologist that I think she's speaking at the Ohio conference next year, but she's from Europe or Great Britain, pretty woman. And she was talking about the game cameras, that we were doing. And she was telling us that there was a couple species that are in Africa that were known species. I think one might've been the black rhinoceros that they were trying to get pictures of. They had like 500 cameras.
Yeah.
And they were like, they're every 15 feet apart in a straight line, even if it means they're up against a tree. And, she said, well, how, where are you putting your cameras? And he's like, saddles, logging roads, along streams, name the typical thing that all of us would be doing all the time that are familiar with traditional game. And she said, well, how do you know that that's even how they travel? I mean, how do you know that they don't travel just on north facing hillsides, 25 degrees up the slope, between every other tree? I mean, the reality is that, we don't know. But I do think that once we get it, just like, I think that once some evidence, irrefutable evidence comes out and one's shot or one is killed on the road by a car or whatever it happens to be, that I suspect there's going to be a lot of evidence that's going to come out across the country that people have been holding that they were, maybe embarrassed to talk about or to say. And, but you still have to do your part, like I gave up largely going out at night unless it's, just with friends, because, I think that to go out at night, people are just out for the experience. I mean, there's some good FLIR thermal footage around, but no one's compelled by it. The scientists don't care.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to stick to the daytime where I can actually see something. Maybe I'll luck onto something. Every time you see a buzzard, you're walking however far you got to just to see what's dead. And hoping that, you can just come up with, something. And of course, a lot of people will say, well, when I speak, I spoke at, I don't remember which conference, just about game cameras for an hour. And, a lot of people believe that, you scare them away as soon as you put them out. And, I think that that's a good chance that it's true, because I know with a lot of witnesses, if they think that they haven't come in or they think that they're eating some of their food or something, then I'll just say, well, just go get a cheap camera and put it out and see if the feeding stops. And then if the feeding stops, take the camera away and start again. And, because I'm sure the cheap cameras are loudest. But, if you're not trying to get some evidence, then really you're just enjoying being out, just like at night, people are out after an experience. They're really not out after, some type of evidence, really, because we're just not accumulating that much at any place, but especially not at night. And I think that after, today is the Patterson-Gimlin film anniversary as we speak. This day in 1967. So all these years later, do we have, I think it's fair to say we have some evidence, but do we have any? We don't really have anything that's compelling for any of us, anybody that's outside the group of us.
That's true. Yeah. Have you tried very miniature lipstick cameras with a small type 1 millimeter wire going off to a record unit that's hidden away, buried, but something so small you can drill a little hole in a tree? If you've got a really, really hot spot, that you could do that in, where you could get to it, and, because in a deal like that, you're going to wear your batteries out in a week.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get to it, pretty quick. But I've been really pushing people to try, and then moving them around a lot, just kind of using the baffle them, where these cameras are. Maybe they'll just screw up one day, just mess up.
Yeah, I think, you remember, I don't know if you've ever met William Dranganis, who's passed away now.
Sure, yes.
But he had that camera that was similar to like that. I remember he had it. It was I think it was called I Gotcha or something like that. I can't remember now. It's been several years. maybe even a decade or longer. And it was like in a tree limb, you had a miniature camera, then the wire ran, it was like 30 or 50 feet away that you buried all the components or whatever, something like that. But I remember in the end that he had one or two or something, but I guess it was a little expensive. I remember that I had found something that was used for underwater usage that had like a similar application.
The Aquaview.
That's it. Yes.
Yep.
And I didn't put that out. Largely what I've been doing now is, I'll actually cut into trees and put the bark back over. I'm using like ghillie suit type things over the cameras. I've made Faraday boxes to try to block electronic noises. Now I concentrate on trying to be around creeks or streams to disguise that noise a little bit. And I don't know that any of it, Doug, is going to work. But I mean, one of the things that I believe in is that, we have to evolve our strategies and not to be afraid, to try new and different things. Let me tell you one of the most interesting things that happened to me this year with my game cameras is there was this area of this park and this ranger. Usually I'll go in and introduce myself to the ranger, whatever park I'm in. And of course, I'm not talking about Bigfoot. I'm just, I'm a certified master naturalist. I'm curious. I'm telling them that I'm putting game cameras out. And if there's anything that they're interested in knowing, like some of the preserves, I've been able to go in where other people don't go in because I'll submit an application telling them that I'll let them know how the adjoining landowners are affecting their animals or how many bobcats they have or whatever it happens to be. And I'll, of course, write that stuff up for them. But I had asked her, usually I'll get an email from them. Then I start sending them cool game cam pictures, big bucks, bobcats, cool ones that they start using on their website for their park. And so you just kind of develop a relationship. And then, of course, the time they find out who you are and what you do. And, and this ranger had suggested this one particular area when I said, what's the most remote area of the park? It's hard to get to. No one wants to go in there. And so, I went into this one area and I had a couple of experiences during the day when I was out that I felt like they were very close to me. And so, I've been keeping notes of when this happened or whatever. So then that next year I went in there 1 month before and I put 7 cameras in. And someone had stole a couple of my cameras, even though it was in a remote area. But, people just sometimes they find it. And, in West Virginia, I've only lost 1 in some of the other states, but Ohio now I've lost several. But it was interesting. I had this camera disappear, and I couldn't tell. It looked like I had a friend of mine, Brad Kennan, which is an engineer, looking at the cable lock, and I called cable lock the Master Python to ask them how many pounds of pressure it would take to break the cable. And then they told me, it was like, they gave me this whole deal about how it's a, professional secret. They're not allowed to share all this stuff or whatever. Of course I was just wanting to know because whether it was possible that something could pull it off.
Sure.
And there was some marks on it that made me think that, maybe there was a tool used, but I just didn't have any idea of knowing. And I had a really good setup that I didn't think that someone would be able to see or find and in such a remote location.
Mm-hmm.
And so that camera was gone. And earlier this year, I've been doing this whole thing. Some people have been having luck with peanut butter and all this different thing. And I don't know if it works or not, but I'm willing to try anything. So, I had probably 40 or 50 places in different areas. I'd have some glyphs that I'd put out on a stump or different colored rocks. And I just take pictures of them. And then whenever I'm in these areas, I look back through my camera and see how they look and see if they've changed. And, rock overhangs or mine openings and places like that. And most of the time, nothing changes or happens. But, occasionally something may. And so I had peanut butter out, and this peanut butter had disappeared, and it was duct taped to a tree. So, something has to pull it off. It's not coming off. And, I didn't think that much of it. But 2 years prior to that, I had lost that camera, and so then 3/4 mile away, off trail through the woods, this peanut butter disappears. So earlier this year, I'm walking, and it's kind of like an old timber road or something. And I get to where that camera setup was, and at the foot of that tree is the lid of my peanut butter.
Yep. And let me guess, no teeth marks.
No, there was nothing like that. And Brad Kennan, he said, well, to me, they were apparently saying, we don't like your cameras, but we do like the peanut butter.
Yeah, we like your peanut butter, but we're not big on your cameras.
And we filmed bears tearing the peanut butter jars open, and they just pry that cap up, but they leave teeth marks every time.
Yeah, and in Ohio right now we only have 75 resident bears in the whole state.
Really?
So it's rare to even, in some of these sections, it's a big deal to have a bear sighting. Everybody would talk about it.
Wow.
It's not common. I've only seen bear poop one time in one section of the forest, but it was interesting. About 2 weeks after that, it was Ohio's largest section of unbroken wilderness or woods. I don't know that you'd really consider it a wilderness, but it's probably about 50 square miles that has no roads or trails through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, among cameras several miles in, I also had peanut butter in one place out. And so a friend of mine, Dr. Kenny Brown, that is in Ohio, and he's a family doctor. And one of the young guns that, he's speaking at some of the conferences now, his specialty is long duration recording. Good guy, bright guy. And he sent me a picture and said, is this one of your peanut butters? And he had walked into a woods area that was in that section, but it was 3 miles from where my peanut butter had been.
Oh, wow.
And when he came back out of the woods, it was sitting right in the middle of the trail.
Mm-hmm.
So the empty jar?
No, it was still full.
Oh.
And that one was, so, I mean...
who's going to carry a peanut butter jar?
Right?
3 miles.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It doesn't show anything. That's like here several years ago I was doing a magazine article with this one guy, and I was telling him about, I had developed this theory called perches that I believe that they're very similar to big bucks, and big bucks stay back during the day or in these areas where people don't go, maybe some brush and just, and then as night moves on, they kind of creep up and they'll move into an area called a staging area, which is where short of the field or short of where the does would be. And that's where they would hang out until dark. And, I kind of imagine Bigfoot doing that same thing. Maybe there's a dumpster, maybe there's, something in a park that they're interested in, and, and they kind of would creep up and watch that or whatever. And so, I started going to this park. These parks are looking on maps, looking for dead end roads, places where those dumpsters would be, that's connected to a remote area that would allow safe access, and going in and looking at those areas and, and finding where you thought they would be, rock stacks, sticks breaks where something has stood, some ground being compressed, partial footprints, where something's doing that. And in the same way, it's not evidence, but, it's intriguing. And so, you can go check those areas. And then if you find one that's active, well, then maybe it's a time to try to get a game camera in there and, see if you can get, like you said, Doug, maybe a juvenile or an older one or something, lightning strikes and it doesn't hear your camera, who knows what it would happen to be. And,
something has to give, though.
Pardon me?
I mean, something has to give. There's got to be some combination that works to fool them.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing. You got to document everything that you do. When every day that I'm in the woods, when I come out, I have my iPad Pro and I sit down in GoodNotes and I write down that day where I was at, my thoughts on the day, if I heard anything, if I saw anything, and most of the time you don't. And, saying things like, I should have been here 2 months earlier, or I should have been here at all, and if there's something that's compelling, then you add it to your calendar of dates that you're trying to move into the certain locations. Last year, I think that I had a brief encounter, and it certainly was not a good one. But it was when I was actually there looking for them. I was in a park because on my calendar, I saw that at this one particular area of a park, 2 gentlemen had a Class A sighting 2 years to that week before. So I was there just because of that, and was walking up in the woods, and it had rained hard the night before. And so I could see that no one had been there but me, and no other cars were parked around. And I got up on top of this, it was in Ohio, so I'll call it a mountain, but, I'm not sure we would call it a mountain in the rest of Appalachia. And Shade, my lab, is always with me, and, he's trained, so he's not on leash. I'm carrying a leash around my neck, but he's always about 20 feet in front of me. And I saw, to me, my brain said hiker. I noticed it was all buff collared. And as soon as I saw it, I just went, and Shade just ran back to me, and I stuck his leash on him. And I mean, it literally wasn't 5 or 6 seconds, and we were walking again. And I didn't take maybe 20 steps while the trail turned that I was on. And I realized what I had seen was off trail, and I got suspicious. And there was a pawpaw patch there and a ridge right behind it. And I ran there, and I could see that whole mountainside, that whole area, and there was just nothing there. And I think it's interesting, and I've talked to some of my friends like Matt Pruitt and some others around. It's like when you spend a lot of time in the woods, your brain attempts to categorize things instantly, even without letting you cognitively think about it. So I saw a hiker, that's just what my brain said instantly. So all the time now when I go in the woods, before I even go in, I'm reminding myself, if you hear something or you see something, don't assume it's something. Not long ago, I was in the woods and I heard a tree crack or whatever, not like a wood knock or something like that, but a legitimately either a tree broke, but it wasn't very far from me, maybe like 60 or 70 yards in some brush. But as soon as I heard it in my mind, I thought that was a tree breaking. It was too loud to be a Bigfoot. And I just kept walking, and then later I thought, why wouldn't you just walk over there and just look,
check it
whatever, but I had it in my mind already that it was categorized as something. I mean, having the experience I just talked about did change me in the fact that the great majority of the time now I'm using a GoPro when I'm in the woods, so that if I see something, I'm at least going to have it recorded now.
Do you go armed, Russ? Do you ever go armed?
I did not for years and years and years. I just have always been in the woods. I'm very comfortable there. I'm not afraid. But in the last several years, like right now in Appalachia is when they harvest pot. Really, it's a little late. It was in September. But so, when you're in the woods, it's common for you to run into that type of thing or see where it's grown. Or, you're back in the woods and you're not on a trail. And then all of a sudden you find this heavily tromped down trail, it's apparent that, something's around you there. So I worry about the people that I come out of the woods and find at my vehicles in remote locations. So now in my truck, I have 3 guns at any one time, and it depends on how far I'm hiking. Like sometimes I'm carrying a fanny pack, sometimes it's a backpack, sometimes I'm not carrying anything. And that decides on which type of gun that I'm carrying. So now I am doing that, but it's not because I'm worried about, Bigfoot trying to kill me or something like that.
Well, the reason why I ask is it like a handgun? Is it concealed, or do you like to carry a rifle? Because I know there's a school of thought that people that seem to be armed don't have as many sightings. That's the popular thought anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I will say that I'm always carrying a revolver, and I always have it covered because, why would I not have it covered if I wasn't sure?
Exactly.
So that's what I've been doing that way. I mean, sometimes, you can bump into, last year I ran into a cub, a sow and a cub, and, literally face to face. And so, something like that could happen. Here in West Virginia, they're hunted, pretty heavily with dogs and stuff. And so usually they're running as soon as they get wind of you.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
But largely it's that I worry about people. You know, it wasn't very long ago, too. I was coming over this mountainside where there's these old mines, and I was sliding down this hillside to get out of there, and I thought, you know, I think I was around 50 then. I was like, gosh, you know, man, it'd be easy. I mean, I don't have cell signal most of the place I'm at, and you know, it could be easy for me to break an ankle, and you know, and you're a couple miles back in here, and so it made me realize that if I had a light and a gun, that I felt comfortable that I could spend the night and feel okay about it. And so now always I have a headlamp somewhere on me and, you know, a pair of backup batteries to get me through the night if it would fall short or whatever. And I'm carrying a gun all the time now. But most of the places that you would be, border states, Kentucky, except for Eastern Kentucky, you know, you're not that worried about getting lost or whatever it happens to be. It's just a matter of, you know, you could fall down and, you know, twist your ankle or, you know, whatever it happens to be. So, you know, it's a little bit of a concern that way. Yeah. You know, most of the time I'm using the OnX app. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Yeah.
Yep. Love the app. Love that, you know, you can download and are constantly upgrading the areas you're in. And so, you know, if you carry your phone and, you know, maybe just a little extra charger or whatever, you know, it's, you know, most of the time in Ohio, you know, I don't even have it on except for I'm marking where I put cameras or gewgaws, you know, little trinkets that are out in the woods or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, it's better be safe than sorry. That's for darn sure.
I was going to mention, we'd love to hear some stories from your book. Any favorite, you know, eyewitness accounts?
Yeah, you know, what I've been trying to do, of course, you're always collecting new ones. And the ones I told you that I trend to, like, I like when you get something new and fresh, but I really like the older ones too, because a lot of times I'm attracted to certain types of witnesses, like, you know, professionals or troopers or doctors or biologists or whatever it happens to be, because I just find this interesting that, you know, some of the people would contact us. Like I had this gentleman, I want to say that it was, it happened in 2008. So it's like 13 years ago, but I just heard from him about 2 weeks ago. And it's always interesting to me that how these cases stick out to these people. You know, it's like I got one from a medical doctor that happened in 1969, and he wrote me just a couple of years ago about an experience, and it stays with him. It's interesting with the witnesses. You'll hear it all the time that they literally just think about this each day. I mean, probably most of us that are interested in Bigfoot, we for sure think about it each day. But, you know, people that don't have, you know, like we were talking about, Doug, it wasn't demographic, it was geographic with the witnesses. And some of the people, the only thing they have to do with the woods is that they drive a car that's through the woods. You know, they're not in the woods, they don't hike or whatever. And, you know, then all of a sudden that you have these people that think about Bigfoot all the time. Like, I'm sure that she wouldn't mind me saying, but if you guys saw the return special episode of Finding Bigfoot that has been on here in the last couple months. So the witness that they had in Ohio was one of my witnesses. Largely, I think several of the witnesses they had on the show were my people. And of course, that's how they're usually doing it, is they're going to do it in a certain area and they'll call whoever does most of the reports in that area and say, hey, you know, who do you know, or who's a reliable witness, or whatever happens to be. And so, this lady, like, she never thinks about Bigfoot. It's never entered her mind. Her husband's a professional. They're busy raising their kids. The only thing significant about their property, they have 28 acres, is that it adjoins a preserve. And she's walking her dogs like she does every day. But that day she got a little bit later start. And when she got up into the edge of the woods near where the preserve borders her, she heard like a cacaw, is what she said, just this noise. And she looked up, and saw this Bigfoot stand there. It was kind of a grayish color. And I hear from probably 50 witnesses at least each month, even though there are sightings that happened a long time ago. They just get compelled or interested in the subject and, have trouble setting it aside, even though they're maybe not outdoorsmen or whatever it happens to be. She knows when her Bigfoot sighting was. It was 2 years ago this week, or it might have been last week now. And so, she told me that she keeps rocks out there. She keeps peanut butter out there. She looks for tracks. I think that probably, they were used to her schedule when they're in that particular area because, let's face it, I mean, these are large animals and they consume a lot of calories. The land that they're on, each bit of land only has a certain amount of carrying capacity. And so unless somebody's feeding them supplementally, they just can't stay really in one area. They'd have to kind of move around through an area.
Yeah, have a wide range, maybe like a mountain cat or something.
Yeah, you think about on the East Coast where it's more of parts of it are like a rainforest or are a rainforest. I mean, I always thought that, maybe, a bear is 35 square miles for their range, that maybe double that or triple that might be reasonable for a larger animal that is be more resourceful than a bear was, but eating largely the same things as a bear. And so, it probably recognized the time that she was coming out. I've noticed that with a lot of witnesses, it's a couple times a year that they'll come through. Not all of them. I don't think there's any rules, so to speak, but I've just noticed that a lot of times it's a couple times a year. So if, hers was in October, then, sometime through the spring, she should be conscious of that and watching it. And, but that's how, I remember in the first book, this guy, was a teenager and, he was outside playing with another kid. And, of course they lived on a mountain and they heard something coming down the mountainside and they both looked and this Bigfoot was going down the hill. I mean, not very far, 40 or 50 yards from them, and glanced at them and just continued on. And I said, well, could you draw me a picture or anything? And he said, I have hundreds, and here this guy is, he's a welder, a union welder for the mines, but, he's drawing picture after picture after picture of it. And so it's common, like when you get these witnesses like this gentleman that, I just heard from last week. And if you want, I can read you what he told me.
Sure. Love that.
Okay. So he's a preacher, and not that it has anything to do with anything, but, I just throw that in there. And so he told me, said observed, and he said, first of all, thank you for taking my story. I was born in Clay County, Kentucky, and have lived in several states, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and now West Virginia. And my story takes place while living in West Virginia and Kentucky border in 2008. The coal industry is very important to the economy, and underground mining requires battery-operated equipment due to the exhaust of the internal combustion engines. And he was working for a company that rebuilt batteries that ran the equipment. And these batteries weigh 100 to 150 pounds each. He picked up some batteries from one of the mines and started on a route. He went down past Charleston, West Virginia, and started down, names a route, which led him into a very rural mountainous area, and then went from blacktop to gravel, then to dirt. And this is interesting. I like this sighting for a couple of different reasons, but it's unusual. He said it was about 5:00 p.m. and being in the spring of the year, the day had begun to wane and evening was falling. He had his headlights on, and he's making his way along the dirt road. There was a low water bridge, which I'm assuming that, some listeners probably won't know that that's there's some pipes for water to go through, but concrete's poured on top for cars to drive over. So when the water was high, you probably couldn't cross there, but it's called a low water bridge. And these are 1 lane wide and close to the water. And noticed when he lined up, he noticed there were some deer off to the right and some birds, and he was just kind of looking around. And on the edge of the bridge, he said what he thought was a bear. And he'd seen many bears where he worked. Only black bears, of course, is what we have here. And he'd seen 3 or 4 different bears in that area. But he said he'd noticed one. It was certainly never that big, and it was sitting on its haunches looking down into the water. He said, I had my driver's window down about halfway as I approached it. And as I got closer, I thought, that's not a bear. When I got within about 5 yards of it, so he's, 15, 20 feet from the thing, it stood up and turned and looked at me. It must have been at least 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide at the shoulders. No neck that I could see. I've never been that close to an animal that size in my life. It was a brindle collar, brown, black, gray, kind of all mingled together. And its head was kind of pointed, had no hair on its face. It almost looked human. It didn't look angry or threatening, just kind of interested in me being there. The hair was several inches long and it hung down its arms, and its hands were almost to its knees. Bears don't have front legs like that. I should know. I've seen enough of them fairly close, and they sure don't have hands. As I drove by, it looked down at me in my pickup truck, and I realized how large it was. I was literally within 5 feet of it when I passed it, going about 5 miles per hour. There was no foul smell that I can remember, and I've heard that comes with some of them. Actually, it's about 15% of the sightings. Approaching the edge of the bridge, I looked in my outside mirror, and it turned and stepped off the bridge into what must have been about 4 feet of water. It didn't come to its waist, and I remember saying to myself, that wasn't a bear. I watched it cross the stream and climb up the opposite bank with a hand-over-hand motion, holding onto trees as it went. Coming back that way, let me just say here that commonly in Appalachia, you will hear them climbing hillsides and banks, pulling tree after tree. Several years ago gone, and I'm now 71 years old. I've not told anyone about what I saw until recently. And I shared a story with my father-in-law and told him I would understand if he didn't believe me. But to my surprise, he had worked in that area and said that there's something down there, and people have claimed to see it for years. So I hope that you've enjoyed my story, and I swear it's true.
Wow, what a sighting. Talk about being close to it.
Yeah, I've never, maybe another one someone has been that close, but it's rare for you to hear it. I always think it's interesting that, this guy's a retired person. He's a preacher. He's 71 years old. He never told anybody for, over a decade until he told his father-in-law. And then I was the next person that he told. But I'm always interested that, you have all these people. Like I have reports from mayors and from police chiefs that will not let you tell who they are in public. And it's interesting that they are, they have nothing to gain to come forth to tell me a story.
Sure. No, exactly. They have everything to lose, nothing to gain.
Exactly. Now, I've had a lot of times for the TV show, I helped out on the Ohio episodes on Finding Bigfoot, and another show maybe on Nat Geo or whatever. And then the Finding Bigfoots in Ohio and West Virginia, I took them to the locations that they went here and had the witnesses for them. And there were some people that would not go on because, one was a teacher, I remember, and I remember another was a state policeman. They were uncomfortable with, telling stories.
That is something else.
I've had witnesses so adamant about me not revealing who they are. They've actually said, I will hunt you down and kill you.
Oh my gosh.
Dang, Doug.
Breathe the word of the story. I've actually even had stories. They don't want me even repeating the story because it might lead people to know who they are. And
wow.
They're not making it up. Because I'm the only one that knows.
Yeah.
No pressure there, Doug.
No, none. Nope. No, and I can actually remember one case where I had a number of people, they were willing to tell me their story. They were all together. But because of their positions, they all said, "We will hunt you down."
I mean, imagine, like I said, when it becomes, it's certainly more acceptable to talk about Bigfoot. You can have a conversation now without everybody thinking you're crazy or laughing at you. Maybe that's something the TV shows have definitely helped with.
Yes.
And I remember at one point the current thinking within the BFRO was that about 1 out of every 20 sightings was being reported. So I can imagine there's some great sightings that, are just out there right now that people are having experiences by, that some of them that, some of our greatest stories, like, that we've been told in the past, there's probably some that are equally as good.
Well, I would actually argue with that 20%. I think it's more like 1%.
1%.
Yes.
Yeah. Could well be.
Well, because, I'm grouping together the very non-eventful sightings where it's a glimpse of an animal standing at the side of the freeway.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
It's a real quick encounter.
Yes.
So when you add those in, that's where I think that it really ends up, at about 1%. But those little brief sightings leave people with a lifelong thirst to learn more.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, I think it was last week that I had wrapped up the second book. And so I had decided to, the public sees very few reports that ever come out of the BFRO. Let's say, Doug, what you say, 1 out of 100 get reported, and then say a lot of them go to the BFRO or whatever it happens to be through one path or another, then I would say like just a fraction of those ever even make it published. Most are in the database. Yeah. And then, it's really surprising. I mean, some of the states, there's not a lot of active Bigfoot people, and there's probably a lot of gem of cases, because I went through all of the BFRO's database for all those Appalachian states. There's 13 states considered Appalachian now. And, there was tons and tons of them that I just couldn't even sift through because they just hadn't even been categorized. But I had been working on clearing Southeast Ohio and all of West Virginia out. And there's tons of reports that are like just something, just like you just said, Doug, I'm driving down this road at this place. I saw something walk across the road, and you don't want to publish it because there's literally thousands of stories just like it. I mean, that's the most common sighting is, a road crossing. But, so you just label it. You talk to the person if you believe that it's true, or maybe you visit the location, then it's in the database. But, the public's really not seeing many of those type of reports. So I tried to pick reports that I thought were interesting for, for whatever reason, whether it was something we just don't commonly hear, or, it was just something that had been around a while that it hadn't made into the public for whatever reason. I mean, there was like a couple that I remember that the witness wouldn't allow it out, but then now that I revisited, it had been enough years since it happened that as long as I took their name out, they didn't mind me telling the story anymore.
Wow. But I mean, it's just so many sightings and people being afraid to come forward. And, I suppose they're worried about how people view them in their professions. I mean, obviously, why they'd be afraid to let that out. But like you said, it's getting more and more commonplace.
Well, let's just say, Joel, you're a detective, and you're having a pop at a rest stop, and all of a sudden you have a very brief sighting. Well,
yeah, no, very true.
Not get
very
out.
True.
They would, it isn't even so much sometimes that they're going to get fired, that they're going to get harassed by their fellow workers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Sometimes that fate is worse than death for some people.
No, very true. Very true.
So you'd like to hear another one?
Yeah,
sure. Love to.
Okay. So I just heard from this lady. This one happened in 1969, and she is an RN now that lives in Florida. And she says that the year was 1969. It was a very dry August. My sister and I were going to the store. She chose to walk the way of the dirt road, and I chose to walk down the path from my grandparents' home up the side of a hill. And I was watching my sister from up on the path as she walked the road approximately 200 yards above her. When she passed the well, a natural spring, this creature stood up. It was tall, broad shoulders, with its arms hanging below its knees. It was hairy but not thick hair, and I could see skin on its back. I screamed for my sister to run. She turned toward me, saw the creature, and ran. I can still see the dust from her feet as she ran. The creature immediately stooped back down and entered the brush alongside the creek below me. It moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. We told her grandmother. She had said it's always been there and was just getting water. She also said that her mean old bear dogs were scared to come out from under the house whenever it was around. She said it liked to wander around on damp, rainy nights. This is no hoax. I'm a science major and a registered nurse who remembers this incident that cannot be explained unless Bigfoot is real. And I believe that I saw Bigfoot, and he still lives up Shop Hollow, Slate Creek area, McDowell County, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's powerful.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, because these are people, like I could go through literally dozens and dozens of reports that are professionals or just different types of people that, they're telling these stories after years. I talked to a gentleman that his dad was a doctor, and they'd went hunting, and had this little cabin, and there was some cattle. And when he went outside, or him and his dad were leaving to go deer hunting, they noticed that the cattle were over in a corner of the fence, which was unusual, but they didn't think much of it. And they walked down the road, and they saw something up in a corner of the cemetery that was there, and was about 100 yards away. And his dad looked at it through the scope and then said, look through the scope and tell me what you see. And he described to me that it looked like a kindly old black gentleman. And they watched it for about 5 minutes. And then his dad said, come on, we got to go. And they walked back to the cabin. And, every time he had to go to the restroom, his dad was standing outside with the gun while he went to the outhouse or whatever, and then went back inside. He said, it's the only time that he'd ever seen his father scared in his life. And his dad had him tell him, exactly what it was that he had seen. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. He said, we should just not tell anybody about this. This should be our secret. And so when this gentleman told me, he was 70 and his dad had just passed away. And so he was telling the story. He'd held it his whole life, just wanting to tell the story.
Damn, man. I mean, just those stories of why do you think the government, what's your thoughts on the government and Bigfoot? Do you think the government even cares about their existence?
It's interesting. I always think that I have to be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist because I believe in Bigfoot, but I don't really think that I'm that much of one. But I think that, interestingly, since COVID has happened, if there's anything that we've learned is I'm not sure that the people, the public, is capable of handling a Bigfoot, the general public. I'm not sure that, we've never been in a time where people go into the woods less, that are less familiar with the animals, the woods, they're afraid of the dark, they're afraid of getting lost, they're afraid of getting bit by a snake.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the general public that doesn't do it that much would feel comfortable going to the parks if they knew that there was something like that was out there. For the majority of us that, that are interested in Bigfoot. But, with COVID, we've seen, the public's not very good about educating themselves.
Yeah.
We're prone to, just being fearful. I mean, I think back, once again to that 1918 fluke. Carl Jung, the prominent psychologist, was writing a letter to, posthumously after that had happened, saying that he wanted the people of the future to know that the actions, the behavior of the people during that pandemic that killed 10% of the world's population was worse than the disease. He wanted us to learn. But, here we are 100 years later, and we didn't learn, and we didn't, we don't look at that stuff and realize, they told us in the past that it was going to be like this. And, and that's what the public has been. So now I've thought that, I don't believe that, I'm sure that some groups would come out and want some area that, be preserved or whatever it happened to be to, but I think that these animals have existed along with us for a long time. And I don't think that largely we pose a threat to them. The timbering and the things like that cause secondary forest growth, which is exceptional for deer, which of course, it's good for bobcats and Bigfoot then. But, sometimes man thinks he knows best. You think back to the spotted owl and, we shut down all the timbering for the spotted owl. Well, then what happens? The spotted owl goes more endangered. Why? Because, we found out that it needs a secondary growth to nest, and that's where it feeds, but, man thinks that we know best all the time. And so I'm not sure that, something like that wouldn't come up with the Bigfoot thing. But I think that probably, that it's happened in terms of there being sightings. I mean, several of the rangers in different parks that, I work have had sightings or experiences. And, just recently Action Jackson retired out of Yellowstone, maybe the most famous ranger in United States history, patrolled the back areas for poachers. Yellowstone's the only place in the country that you can be 20 something miles in all directions from the nearest road. He was back in there and he had a Bigfoot sighting, and I'm certain that Action Jackson, that spent his life in Yellowstone on a horseback in wilderness, knew what the animals were. Exactly. And so, if he says that he had a sighting, I'm inclined to believe him. And, we've seen that commonly with rangers. I remember a few years ago, I think there was somebody that came out of your guys' area. It was like Wisconsin or Minnesota. There was a ranger that when he retired came out with some stories. And, and we've seen that. You remember Hukin and Sullivan were the two biologists from the Pacific Northwest. They had a Bigfoot sighting and were very interested in it for years and read some articles and whatnot. So, I think that they probably know more than they're letting on.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I agree. To what extent, who knows? But I also don't believe all the conspiracies that are out there either. Because maybe the government's so inept, they don't even know, where they can't even get a handle on it.
The same things that have led us believe in the conspiracy theorists, they also have allowed people to maybe bleed some of the woo stuff of the Bigfoot phenomena into the groups. For instance, like the tree breaks and the tree structures. I mean, I think it's reasonable to me that Bigfoot probably does some of that stuff just because the other great apes do. But I mean, don't you think like our forefathers, I mean, those guys were master woodsmen, hunters for their life. I mean, I think that there was something out there that was, we have historical accounts of Bigfoots, obviously, but, if something was breaking limbs everywhere, that those hunters would have noticed. And, they would have done something with that.
Yep, 110% agree. Dr. Russ Jones, we are at the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming on. But before we go, can you tell people how to get a hold of your websites, how they can buy your book, and get your other book that's coming out, all that kind of good stuff?
So the book, always on Amazon, able to find the books on there. Any state park in Appalachia usually will have the books. On Twitter, I'm Bigfoot Doc, which is Bigfoot_Doc. My email is dr like doctor, RLJ, which is my initials, at yahoo.com. And shortly I'll be doing a website for Appalachia for people to be able to contact me directly if they didn't get any of that information. And, you know, and I'm always careful, just like with my patients, to protect the information that people give me, and that if they tell me something that's in confidence, and I won't share them. And, you know, I take everybody seriously.
Man, what a conversation tonight, right, Doug? Goes by way too quick.
Yeah. And Russ, we'd be amiss if we didn't say hello to Tim Halloran, who was the gentleman who introduced us, who is writing a new book called The Bigfoot Influencers. And I know you're going to be in that book.
Yeah, it was quite an honor. I mean, I've known Tim for several years and think a lot of him. And so I'm looking forward to that book coming out, and, you know, humbled that, you know, he would think of me as, you know, someone that's active in the field, that's, you know, maybe helping come up with some new ideas or whatever it happens to be. And of course, Doug, like I said, I've been a big fan of yours, and I always listen to anything I can find with you, because you're so creative, especially with your ideas on cameras and different things like that, and give me things to think about all the time. And so, and I know that, I remember it was a couple of months ago, I had actually messaged you because I was curious about one of the cameras the Sony camera you'd recommended, and you were kind enough to give me the information on that and whatnot. But, so I appreciate you. And Joel, you just do such a great job, you know, on the show, and I love listening to the episodes, and, and I appreciate how you do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And again, guys, we got to give Russ, really, Doug makes it really easy, by the way. So, can't take hardly any of the credit. Mr. Highcheck is amazing at what he does, and you're equally as amazing. So thank you so much for sitting in with us. Till next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other. Hey, let's steal Abe's catchphrase. Squatch on.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now,